Hello and welcome to the last unit of this course on basics of mooting. Let's quickly review what we have learned in this course so far. After we learned how to decide whether to take a mooting in law school, we learned some things you can do to prepare yourself even before you receive your moot problem. After that, in the second and third units, we went through all the milestones that you have to cross between the time you receive the moot problem and the time you submit your moot memorial. You learned about how to read the problem, conduct research, frame issues, construct arguments, and draft the moot memorial. Now we have come to the last stage of preparation before the competition, and this is preparing for the oral rounds. In the oral rounds of a moot court competition, you have to persuade a panel of judges to grant you the relief that you have prayed for. This has to be done through an oral presentation of your argument, and these judges will mark your performance. The parameters on which the judges are expected to mark you may include: firstly, how persuasive you were in your arguments. That means they will be looking for logical coherence and a well-structured argument, grounded in a good understanding of the law governing the problem and the clarity in your communication. Secondly, the form of your communication, where they will look at whether you observed etiquette, remained respectful of the bench, and courteous to the opposing side. And thirdly, how well you responded to the questions and interventions from the bench. So it matters whether you were able to satisfy the judges with your answers and whether you retained your composure while doing so. For many, the last criterion is the most exciting part about mooting because of all the unknowns involved. Since the judges are likely to be unknown to you, you will not know anything about their ideas about the problem or their understanding of the law applicable to it. So you will not know what issues they consider important, what kind of arguments they prefer, and what questions they will ask you. So while you may enter the oral rounds with a definite idea of the arguments that you want to make and the order that you want to make them in, there is no guarantee that you will be permitted to follow that script. This can be a stressful environment for some, but some of you will be better than others at bringing your quick wits to the fore.
I think part of it has to be a natural ability as well. I don't think it is an ability which you can get entirely out of practice. So some of it comes from just knowing your facts really well and knowing what to say when, and that can come to you naturally. I think the only part which can come out of practice is to actually do the moot a few times, because then you may get a little more comfortable thinking or thinking quickly as opposed to pausing and thinking about which page of the problem some fact is on. So I would say you can't do it entirely dehours of a certain amount of natural ability to actually think on your feet, but yes, part of it does come from practice.
But if you're well prepared and can remain calm, you can also learn to bring the best of your persuasive abilities out in such stressful situations.
It's important to think on your feet, but I think what really helps to think on your feet is to put it metaphorically, to reduce the distance between the point that you're making and the answer that you have to give. So I feel that the more developed your ideas are about the case that you have, the more developed your ideas are about the rules that you're applying, the more developed your ideas are about particular precedents that might not go very strongly in your favor or that might go against you, the easier you will find it to respond to questions, because you will have developed ideas and all you need to do is to pivot from that to the point that is being made. And you already are part of the way there because you already have a developed set of ideas about that. So I think to have a well thought out case and to have answers not just to why did you do this or why didn't you do that, which are questions that arise on the facts, but also how does this case help you or what do you have to say in response to this case. To have developed ideas on these kinds of questions reduces the amount that you have to improvise on that particular occasion when you're called upon to think on your feet. And so I think that that is a very important way of preparing to think on your feet, because it takes you a lot of the distance towards answering the question and it reduces how far you have to jump on your feet, as it were.
Yes, so no matter how quick-witted you think you are, proper preparation can make a big difference to your scores in the oral rounds. The deeper your understanding of the problem, the legal issues and the law applicable to it, the faster you can respond correctly to the questions from the bench.
large part of that anticipation from my end would come because I'm already having to prepare arguments for the other side. So that really helps anticipate what will come at you. But what's important is that everybody has a different perspective of looking at the same set of facts, which is why it's very important to talk and do practice sessions with people who've read the problem afresh. Because sometimes there can be, for instance, when I was doing dress up, we were working on it for almost till the international rounds got over. I think it must have been about 9 months. And sometimes there's a sort of fatigue that sets in because you've been reading that same problem for so long. So it really helps to get a fresh perspective from someone who's just read that problem or who's never done that moot before and is an entirely fresh pair of eyes looking at it, asking you questions. And it helps you test how far that throws you off when you get something which you're not anticipating and whether you can think on your feet and answer that question.
Now, look once again at all the milestones we have learned to cross in your preparation. All of them matter not just to the making of the good memorial, but also to your score in the oral rounds. Now, let's look at what other preparations you can do specifically for doing well in oral rounds. First of all, there is a lot you can do to improve your general oral communication skills. My Law has a course on advanced legal communication from which you can learn some of these techniques. You could also watch videos online of confident and effective speakers and think about what makes them good. You will notice, for example, that almost all of them share some of these attributes. For example, they will maintain eye contact with the audience, modulate their voice effectively, and execute confidence in their body language, in how they stand and how they use their hands. While many people are naturally good at doing these, anyone can work and improve these aspects of their speaking. For example, you can use an audio or video recording of yourself speaking to see where you're lacking. An equally important element in oral communication is listening. Very simply, listening has 3 facets. Firstly, as you speak, you are keeping a very close watch on the body language of your audience to see if the audience understands what you're speaking. Secondly, when you are listening, you are actually listening and trying to understand the other person as opposed to just waiting for your chance. Thirdly, while you listen, your body language encourages the other person to speak and gives them cues about your understanding of what they are saying. While listening is of course important to many different types of oral communication, they are especially important in mooting because you will be marked on how well you respond to questions and interventions from the bench. This is another skill that can be practiced.
So there you have to be fairly perceptive as to what questions they're asking and therefore where they want you to take the argument. A lot of times, and having judged a few moots now, I find that sometimes people who are arguing don't pause and think about the question that they're being asked, and they answer something which is completely at odds with the question that has been posed to you. So I think it's very important to see, one, the level of interest of the judges in what you're arguing. If you feel that they're with you on something or they're not interested, it may help to move on to something else which may catch their attention and which will also help you to manage time in the sense of cover everything that you've planned to argue. On the other hand, when there's a very proactive bench which is asking you a lot of questions, I think you have to know ways in which you can still move on with your arguments and not make them feel like you've not answered their questions. So in the short time span that you get to read a bench is while you're arguing, I think that's the best you can do. But yes, it is essential that you do it because you don't want the bench to think that you've not addressed something that they've asked you.
You must be an excellent listener, and listening is not just listening to the words that come out of a person's mouth, but trying to understand what point they're trying to convey and trying to piece that together with something that you've just said to figure out what it is they might have a problem with or what it is they're trying to get at. Because not all judges will be extremely fluent in English. They may not be able to use the exact words to convey the idea that they're trying to convey. So it is important to really pay attention and, so to speak, to feel what it is that they have an issue with or what it is they're trying to get out of you if they have a particular answer in mind. And so I think that is one thing that is appreciated across cultures.
Now that we have looked at some of the general skills you need to become a more effective communicator, let us look specifically at how to prepare for oral rounds in a moot court competition.